the latest Economic Risk Summit held in London this year, unquantifiable risks were the main subject of discussion. Pippa Malmgren, President of Principalis, spoke to news insurances about these risks.
I think there are lots of them, but the particular ones that matter in the current world economy really are these three: politics, policy, geopolitics, because the power of the state relative to the market has shifted so dramatically as a function of this record debt crisis that we see worldwide. It's not just a phenomena in the Western industrialized countries, it's also for all the emerging markets who are no longer able to sell their stuff to the West, and they're feeling the same set of pressures. So that's what we tend to focus on. And I think this area is interesting because most people think of these risks as black swans, totally unpredictable, that nobody could be prepared, and I have the opposite view. If you really get a grip on politics and policy and geopolitics, it becomes very clear what is likely to unfold next. So it's not an unpredictable risk. We need to think more strategically about abandoning the old methods. Risk buckets may not work in an environment that looks the way today's does, where you have not just volatility, but turbulence. That's a totally different phenomena, where you don't know the rules of the game because governments will change their minds and shift and move back and forth between dealing with unemployment, dealing with inflation, compressing financial services, which is going to impact the insurance world as well. So I think the portfolio side is one set of risks. The other side is what happens to the insurance risks that you're underwriting. So, for example, geopolitics becomes a much more important driver. For example, as we see civil unrest rise in China as a function of the debt burden leading to job losses combined with more inflation, which is a function of the quantitative easing in the West, at least in part. Civil unrest in China, how do you insure when so many people have put their businesses in China? These insurance risks are equally affected by these non-quantifiable factors. We've had roughly 30 years of a very benign, attractive economic environment where growth mainly went up and inflation mainly went down, volatility mainly went down. So that was a pretty easy landscape. And so people spent their time becoming more and more specialized, narrower and narrower in their focus as they tried to manage the marginal additional dollar more effectively. Now I believe this is all reversed. And what we're going to need in this new, much more difficult environment where growth is down and volatility is up, you're going to need people with multidisciplinary skills who can cross asset classes, who can look at the dislocations being created by these historic events and understand what you need to do to capture the profit opportunities out of them. But of course, we fired most of the multidisciplinary people over the course of the last 30 years, and we encourage that specialization. So it's going to be hard to find the right personnel. And it's going to be difficult to also change the methodology. For example, we're used to giving money to fund managers. But what if we're now in a world where financial engineering combined with financial leverage is not what's going to get you profits, but working with a real owner-operator of a real business? I mean, can you allocate money to a company that's run by a guy who spent 25 years at Procter & Gamble, who has no track record? Well, actually, you should be doing this, but your due diligence procedures don't even permit you to allocate capital in that way, potentially. So I think we've got a lot of intellectual work, methodology work, procedure work, in addition to the right decisions about the actual placement of capital.